The Torah of the modern day man is actually the antithesis of the Torah of Yahweh, the all-existing one. And what a lot of people will try and say, or actually his name, could mean which causes to be. And what a lot of people will try and say is that, the God of the Bible, there's so much crap going on, so much crap being spewed out about the God of the Bible and about the Bible and about the nature of divinity and the nature of consciousness. And, there'll be people who will be arguing, Yahweh is God. No, it's not Yahweh, it's Jesus. No, it's not Jesus, it's Shiva. It's not Shiva, it's the Buddha, right? Everybody's constipated, spiritually constipated. We're spiritually constipated in today's society. And when it comes to Torah, there's nothing that is more backwardsly understood. I need to really get into the text and into the Hebrew and into the actual language. But the context is clear to me. Yahweh means he who causes to be. Doesn't mean he who dominates over other gods. It doesn't mean all this crap you hear in the Torah. And there's this one instance in Genesis, or not Genesis, I think it's Exodus or something like that, where the Israelites, Moses went up the mountain, right? He's going to talk to the highest of the highest, or whatever. Or at least we're told he's talking to the highest of the highest. Maybe he is, maybe he's not. I don't know. And so he's up there with the highest of the highest, and all these people are, they're getting bored, and they make this golden calf, right? It's this idol, quote unquote. And Moses comes down, gets angry. What are you doing? Right? There's not but one God, and he takes this thing and he makes them drink it, basically. What a lot of people don't understand is that the people at that time had a lot of gross associations with idols. And they had a lot of, the Egyptian people who were ruling at that time, they were under a I guess you could say somewhat satanic influence, and basically what they were doing is they were taking the character of Yahweh in vain. This is very hard for people to understand. People think the crime here is that they were there's only one God and you can't worship God through through statues and stuff, even though that's exactly what they do in the Torah. They're bowing to the bronze serpent. They revere God through all things, right? That's really the what metaphysics is. It's you revere the Creator in all things. So why then, it says in the Bible, I am the Lord thy God, thou shalt have no other gods before my face, right? If you understand this from a metaphysical point of view, and you understand this from a more, you understand Hebrew a little bit better. You have to understand Hebrew better than these so-called rabbis these days. The word face means state. It means something that changes. When you have a face, Your face is angry, right? You're in a state of anger. If you're smiling, you're in a state of happiness. If you're upset, you're in a state of sadness. God's essence. Before God's essence, there's nothing. There's nothing that comes into manifestation but through God's essence. And essentially what these people were doing, it's not that, if you got a representation of God, you might be part of the Vedic tradition, or you might worship God as Shiva or Shakti or whatever. That it's hard for people to understand, but that's not what the problem is here. And it doesn't make sense that is what the problem would be, because if you understand God from a metaphysical point of view, what is God jealous of himself? Because God's clearly all things and in all things, and is right. Is Shiva Shakti consciousness is the Aum. Yahweh basically translates into Sanskrit as Aum, and I'm not going to pronounce it. But because it's a mantra, and that's not how you don't just chant mantras. You got to be you got to go into initiation process and whatnot. But that's the thing. These fundamental facts about the Hebrew language, and these fundamental facts about how metaphysics work, and deeper aspects of these words, of these what that seems like commandments. There's these Christians that'll tell you, well, you can't live by that. You can't perfectly live by the Ten Commandments. You'll fail. I like to think, in the thoughts of Paramahansa Yogananda, and in the thoughts of Swami Kriyananda also, that the way people worship God, if they do it in a proper way, you're not worshiping necessarily the idol as God, or you're not necessarily it's in God's honor. When you do something good, they build a statue of you. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily that you're worshiping the statue as God. If you're doing it properly, it's a great thing. It's a divine thing. It's a holy thing. But the problem is that these Canaanites and these Jews, they had a deep association with all this nasty stuff that they did, where they sacrificed their children and sacrificed all kinds of crazy stuff to these idols. And so that was their understanding of it. So, they had to strip the idols. And, the funny thing is, here's the funny thing. The initiates were the only ones who were allowed to go anywhere near the mercy seat. They were the only ones who were allowed to bow before the mercy seat. Why do you think that is? Because they didn't have this ignorant understanding of the idol. The cherubim on the seat. They saw it as an act of God, and they worshiped God through a worship of the greatness of the mercy seat. But they didn't worship the damn mercy seat. It's the same thing as the Catholics. They honor God through the cross. The people who are in the Vedic tradition, they honor God through Shiva, through Shakti. We got to get out of this really shitty idea, this Allahu Akbar understanding of God, because we are destroying this world with these ideas. And all these Yahweh people, they ain't but one name under the world in which we're saved, and that's Yahweh. If we're talking Torah, and we're talking Tanakh, and we're talking Old Testament Hebrew, it says there ain't but one name in which we are to be saved. Do you know what name means in Hebrew? Name means character. So what does it mean to take the character of God in vain. It means to bear false witness against God. And how do you do that? You create a shitty idol, and you give shitty sacrifices to the idol, and you falsely represent God. And there's a lot of things that also I think that are added to the Torah. That's a lot of Jewish nonsense too. It's a bunch of Canaanite evil stuff that's been added to the Torah. But also, I think a lot of thought forms and a lot of negative energies have been put into the Torah. So it frowns upon other traditions. It frowns upon Hinduism. It frowns upon Buddhism. It frowns upon Christianity. And Islam, even though that's somewhat reasonable to frown upon in the sense. Well, most of them actually don't frown that much even upon Islam. It's these people that they claim are these idol worshippers and shit. But the funny thing is, they're worshiping an idea of God that is that needs blood in order to forgive you. So, who's really worshiping Satan here? Who's really worshiping the damn devil? You gotta murder. So, Christians don't believe that shit. I mean, yeah, they believe that Jesus died for their sins and all that type of stuff, which I think that story's a little more complicated than people think. But who's worshiping Satan? Killing baby lambs and stuff to have your sins forgiven. That is a satanic practice if there's ever been one. And then we just got to stop looking at the Bible the way we've been looking at it. And we got to stop looking at God the way we've been looking at God, because I think we have a lot of mistakes we've made throughout human history. And we've painted a picture of God that is absolutely ridiculous. Just like those Canaanites that sacrificed idols to that golden calf.